Colton at breakfast. BBC Radio Sheffield.
6 minutes past 7, let me introduce you to this incredible man that you've been hearing about with Nick in his bulletins. Luke Martin is a Caribbean chef who has experienced homelessness himself multiple times, and he set up a GoFundMe page to create a regular mobile kitchen to feed vulnerable people in Sheffield. He's currently living at a hostel right now and still managing to make this happen. I've been speaking to him all about his experience.
I started my business in Brighton, down south, as you can hear from my accent. I'm not from Sheffield originally, but I had a business in Brighton that was basically kind of got stifled because the plot of land that I was on, the landlord decided to develop the place, and I ended up having to stop doing it there. But I did used to have quite a big business. I had 5 people working for me. I had Uber Eats, Just Eat, Deliveroo, all that stuff. And I started with £300 in a burger trailer. In year 3, we turned over 50k, so it was quite a big business. But yeah, I basically was in a big relationship and that broke down. Then I lost my house and I lost my business.
So you've been homeless yourself?
Yeah, several times.
Tell us about what that means, what that experience was like. Where were you sleeping? How was it?
So the first time I was homeless was when I came to Sheffield, and I was staying with a family member, and that didn't work out, so I didn't basically have anywhere to go. I was going to a group called Men Up North, so I bigged them up. And they had an allotment. So it's only really coming out now in the open because it was kind of a shame at the time and embarrassment, but I didn't have anywhere to go. So I basically took lots of building materials from like sites around town, like where they were doing up Park Hill and stuff, and I built a shed in the allotment, insulated it, and then I was living in there for about 3 months and staying in my truck. So that was the first time.
I mean, to go from never being homeless, you might have had troubles at home, I don't know, to having to live in a shed, that must have been really difficult.
Well, I suppose again it goes back to the fact of what I was saying about going to Jamaica. Like, Jamaica's an island where people have been suffering for a long time, you know, and seeing people with nothing really just sort of like, I don't know, kind of changed my perspective about what life was really about. So when you see people with nothing, then like when you come back, you have that more of a thankful sort of appreciation for life, you know? And like my ancestors were in slavery. So, I mean, what I've been through can't really be worse than that, do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's all about perspective, really. I mean, I wouldn't wish anyone to have some of the things that I've had, but you just got to keep positive and smile and you come through on the other side. But that was the first time I was homeless. The second time was recently. I basically was thrown out of my flat by my landlord. They just took all my stuff and put it in the garden of the shed and, just changed the locks on the building. So, I went back to find out I couldn't get my stuff and,
What did you do?
Same thing again, just basically, because I'm handy with my tools and stuff, he locked up all my stuff in the shed. I just cut it off with the angle grinder and took my stuff back to my allotment, because I have another allotment now in the same area, but not the original one that I was at, if you get me. So I'd built another shed. I've always had a little sort of side plan in the back of my head that if anything goes wrong, then you make your exit strategy, you know. But it's cheaper than storage, and I had to keep some of my stuff there, my clothes, my personal stuff. But thank goodness I was actually seeing somebody at the time, and they did give me a place to stay through some of the time as well. So I have to give her a shout out and big her up.
Is this when you were staying in a hostel?
Well, actually, the council have now put me in a hostel, because the first time I went to the council, they were like, so you don't have a mental health issue, you don't have a drug addiction, you're not pregnant, you don't have one leg, so good luck to you, see you later. And that was pretty much how it went down. And then the second time I went back, they pretty much said the same thing, but then they did advise me that I would be able to get a hostel. So trying to look for a private landlord, I didn't really want to do that, because if the worst comes to worst, then they throw you out again. And it's better to have a council property, and then you've got like an assured tenancy, you know.
I mean, you sat here smiling, but you have been through it more than you let on. Do you feel stable in your life right now?
Well, I always say the same thing. Yesterday's gone and tomorrow's not guaranteed. So what can you do now? That's really all we have is now, you know. So
Maybe your poetry is the reason that you are a musician.
Yeah,
You've
man.
written a brilliant song about your own experience of being homeless. We can hear a little bit now.
Them not know where them home is. How the next meal I come from. Still them have to stand strong, yeah. See them homeless. Them not know where them home is. How the next meal I come from. Still them have to stand strong, yeah.
Oh, that's such a good song. It sounds amazing. Tell us a bit about the inspiration behind it.
Well, I just feel that if everybody just showed a bit of love to each other and was a bit more kind in the world, then, well, you know, the world would just be a better place, you know. I mean, sometimes just walking down the street and giving someone a smile, or I remember there was a time when I was homeless and I wanted to give a gift to somebody, so I was going into Lush to buy a bath bomb, and I spoke to the lady and it came out that I was homeless, and she just gave me another one. And it like made me well up. I was like, wow, like somebody cares, do you know what I mean? And I think that is just missing at the moment. A lot of people are just too stressed out. They're into money too much. Everybody's rushing. It's like a rat race, you know? I mean, it's a shame. Like, I understand it. I do understand it. But I think maybe a little bit of care for each other could, you know, go a long way these days, yeah.
We can all learn something from you, there's no question. You've set up a GoFundMe to get a regular mobile kitchen to feed vulnerable people in Sheffield, when at the same time, if you don't mind me saying, I don't mean this in a pitiful way, you are categorised as vulnerable yourself. Do you recognise that?
Yeah, 100%. And that's the driver. That's the driver, you know. It's like a lot of people will complain and say, yeah, but this person that, and the government this and this and that. But what I think is, you don't really have the right to complain if you're not doing anything about it. Do you know what I mean? Because if we all shift the blame all day long, then it's just going to keep going around like a merry-go-round, you know. We need to actually say, we'll look inside ourselves and say, what can we do to make it better? I'm not perfect, I've done stupid things, and do you know what I mean? I'm not trying to sit here like Mother Teresa and say, look at me with a halo, but if I had nothing and I still gave something, then what can people do with everything? Do you know what I mean? I just have this thing in my head where I see things being chucked away and going to waste, and I think, well, why don't we just use that and make something with it?
I thought that was so poignant and so special what Luke said there about if you've got nothing but you can give back, imagine what you'd have with everything. I love when I get to chat to people and I'm just mesmerised, hypnotised by their sort of mantras of life and what they come out with and how they see things, because it just sort of, it puts things into perspective. Like this guy is currently in a hostel, but he's wanting to give back. He's grateful. I said to him, how is life in this hostel? And he said, you know, it's not great, but he's got a roof over his head. He lived in a shed for a couple of months in his allotment. And he said, well, I've been to Jamaica and homelessness there is not like homelessness in the UK. It's so much worse, it's harder. That's his views, of course. I'm not saying that's our views or that's a fact, but he was just so poetic in everything he said. I was honestly hypnotised by him. Luke Martin sharing his experience of facing homelessness and the GoFundMe that he set up to help feed vulnerable people in Sheffield city centre. Of course, you might have heard him mention the difficulties he had with the first time he was homeless with getting any support from the council. Well, Sheffield Council have told us they've recently changed their housing policy and now give more homes to people with priority needs, regardless of how long somebody has been on the waiting list. Senior leaders from Sheffield Council have also joined a cross-party coalition of over 100 council landlords who warn that England's council housing system is broken and are lobbying the government to reform the system. Right.